Well, how's it going, everybody? It is Dylan Talks Tone live on YouTube every Tuesday at about noon. Today we are going to do some more from the bench sort of stuff. As you can see, I'm at my dining room table. The reason why we wanted to do from the dining room table instead of from the bench is because we're going to talk about guitar setup today. We're going to take two $200 guitars and we're going to set them up to play really, really well. And this is one of those things that I think most people are going to do on their dining room table, or they might not have a dedicated shop. So I figured, let's just do it from the dining room table. This is where I do them. I either do them here or I do them over there in the living room while I'm watching a Netflix movie. So most people do it like that, so let's do it that way. A couple of things before we get started. Don't forget to go over and check out the Dylan Talks Tone Patreon page because at the end of the month, those of you that are $5 patrons and higher are going to be entered to win that Boss Katana Mini right there. And then we're probably going to buy some more stuff, test it, demo it, and do it again. So definitely check that out. Let's go ahead and get our chat popped up here so we can answer questions as we go. And today we're going to talk about setting up guitars. This is going to be pretty cool. All right, let's just make sure that we've got, I want to pop this out so we can see it. At any time you are curious about what we're using or the tools that we're using, there is a link in the description of this video that goes to an Amazon page where I have everything pretty much that I'm using here. And if you use those links to buy that stuff, it helps me out just a little bit at no further cost to you. It doesn't make the price any higher or anything, but it does help me out a little bit. I make like 5 cents when you buy something, but I do appreciate it. So let's talk about guitar tone and guitar setup. The biggest thing to do with tone really is your interaction with the guitar. That's the #1 biggest factor in guitar tone, is the interaction between your hands and the guitar. So what we want to do is make sure that we have that done as well as possible. So we're going to set up this Telly today, and you're going to see how easy this is. I was going to make a whole series of videos about guitar setup, but the bottom line is we already have them. So we're not going to worry about that. Instead, I'm going to do this live with you to show you how easy it is to set up a guitar, how straightforward it is, and also when you see it all at once, it kind of gives you the idea and the interaction between everything. The point of this video is to take a brand new guitar that you got out of the box and set it up yourself so that it plays nice. Now, if you have an old guitar with damage or other things and you've got to worry about fixing and repairing and sorting out things, it could be a completely different story. But for a beginner guitar player to take a $200 guitar out of the box and start playing it, that's the goal. So let's get right into it. First thing we need to do is set the neck relief. And the reason we do that, people want to call that the action. They want to call this the action, but actually this is the neck relief. And the point of setting the neck relief is to establish the playing surface, okay? The strings are pulling this way. The neck is pulling the opposite way. We need to establish the bass tension for everything. And once we have the bass tension and the playing surface established, then we can make our other adjustments. Until that's done, none of it matters, okay? It throws off everything else after this. So this is to me, this is the single most important thing. Besides the very last thing that we do, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, and there's a couple different ways to do this, but what we're going to do is basically we're going to take to establish the playing surface, what we're going to do is we're going to put our neck rest here. We don't want to put it out here because that can affect how the neck bends. So we'll take our finger and put it on the first fret, and we'll take our finger and put it on the fret where it attaches to the guitar. And we'll look about halfway between. The real way to do it would be to take a capo such as this one. But if you don't have a capo, sometimes everybody doesn't have a capo. So we take a capo, we push down on the string right on the first fret, on the last fret right here, and then we take our feeler gauges and we go about halfway between, which is right about there. Everybody wants to give it a specific fret number, but I don't necessarily do that because not every guitar is the same. All right, that's 10 thousandths. It's a little bit bigger than 10 thousandths. I'm going to shoot for, on an inexpensive guitar where the fretwork might not be 100% perfect, I'm going to shoot for 15 thousandths. Ah, perfect. So it's already like that. Now, that's because I messed with this guitar the other day, actually. Now, remember that the guitar is tuned to pitch. First fret, last fret where it attaches, and then right in the middle, we make sure that we have about, I try to shoot for, on an inexpensive guitar, about 15 thousandths of an inch right here, right about halfway between these 2 points. What if we have too much space here? Well, then that means that the strings are pulling the neck this way, and the neck is quote unquote too loose. So then we would take our Allen key, we would put it into the truss rod adjustment. That's not the right size. We would put it into the truss rod adjustment and we would tighten it up. And what would happen is, as we tighten the neck, it tightens the neck up and the center of the neck will come up. Now, in a basic guitar setup, just remember that when you tighten it, the center of the neck will come up. When you loosen it, the center of the neck will go down as it relates to this measurement. So, if it's too tight and we don't have enough space here, we would loosen lefty-loosey this key and it would create more space here. If we need less space, we tighten it righty-tighty, the other way, and it would make less space here until we have 15 thousandths of an inch. That's it. First fret, last fret, middle, 15 thousandths of an inch, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Pretty simple. You could say it in one sentence, just like that. So now, once that's done, the next thing we want to do is probably check our nut height. The thing about nuts on new guitars is there's a couple things. This is a plastic nut. Is it going to sound awesome? It's not going to sound as good as a tusk nut or something more expensive. But it's not going to sound terrible as long as it's nice and tight. As long as we don't have any rattles, we don't have any kind of anything like that. And when we tune the guitar, it doesn't make any creaking and popping noises. As a beginner with a beginner guitar, you probably don't need to worry about anything other than that. What I typically do is I check to make sure that I have about, on a beginner guitar, 20 thousandths of an inch below the first fret. And that's about what this guitar is, and that's about what stock Fender style guitars are going to be when they come from the factory. For a $200 guitar, this is done very well. When we go to the Strat here in a few minutes, we'll check that, but it's probably going to be about the same. As long as there's no, everybody wants to say the nut sucks, it's terrible, it's plastic, blah, blah, blah. As long as it doesn't hang up, as long as it doesn't make any rattling noises, and as long as the height is right around 20 thousandths of an inch, which they are most of the time because these computers can do a very good job of this, probably don't need to do a whole lot with it, okay? So, the next thing we need to do is then let's move along to our string height. So this is what action is. This is what action is, but you can see that if we were to do this first, how it would all be off now. Because if the neck wasn't in the right position, if the nut wasn't in the right position, then the measurement, how high the strings are off of the frets, the action, would be inaccurate, okay? So, as we go here again, this is what we're gonna do, is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna, there's a couple different ways to do this. But what I like to do is I like to go to the 12th fret. Some people say the 17th fret, some people say the 12th fret. It just depends on the guitar. Fenders are pretty flat, so it doesn't much matter. We take our ruler here, we put it on top of the fret, and then we measure the height of the fret all the way down each string individually. Okay? I typically like to go 4/64, 4/64, 4/64, 4/64, 3/64, 3/64. I actually like to go metric, so I like to go about 4 millimeters, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, like that. I like to go millimeters, but since people make fun of me for liking metric stuff, I'm just going to tell you that's the way I do it. But 4/64 to 3/64 is the way we do this. And the way we set that height is like this. Let me show you. It's these little guys right here. So, these are our saddles. Now you notice during the whole part of the setup, this is almost the last thing we touch. Everybody wants to say, oh, my action is off because the winter time happened. And they jump straight for wrenches and tools and they go straight to the saddles. You notice this is the last thing we're doing? Almost the last thing we're doing? Kind of crazy, huh? So I like to switch to this toolkit. We'll get to the toolkits here in a minute and I'll tell you why I like them. But basically all we're going to do is we're going to use this wrench, which is just a normal Allen key. I just have it on a little bit here. And we're going to raise and lower these saddles. You see these saddles have a screw on each side, so you kind of have to make sure that they come up and down kind of evenly until you get the string height that you want at the 12th fret, checking it with the straight rule. That's all you do. You just adjust that up and down. Now I'll caution you, here, watch this. Let's loosen one of these. Here's what can happen if you don't do it evenly. Of course it doesn't do it. Let me see if I can make it do it. Let me see if I can make it do it here on one of these. There it goes. It rattles. Hear that? Hear that little rattle? That's because the tension is not even from left to right on both of those. So you got to just make sure that when you do it that both of them, the tensions are even from side to side. And that is action. This guitar has already been done. So we went 4/64, 4/64, 4/64, and then 3/64 on the last one. So then the next thing we got to do, kind of the last thing we're going to do, and this is always last, is intonation. This is a real tough thing for a lot of people, and a lot of people get really, they kind of get scared about it because they think they're going to mess it up. But the bottom line is all we're doing is changing the length of the string. So on a Fender guitar, the scale length is 25.5 inches. On a Gibson guitar, it's 24.75 inches. Those are the two main ones. Paul Reed Smith has a 25-inch scale. All that means for you as a newer guitar player is that is the length from the nut to where the string breaks over the saddle. Okay, so that's all it is. It's 25.5 inches from here to here. So half of that is 12 3/4 inches. So we want 12 3/4 from this. It's more accurate to do it this way. From the nut to the 12th fret, and then you want 12 3/4 inches from the nut, or from the 12th fret to the saddle. Now, if you notice this, let me show you something here. If you notice, you will see that each of these is sitting, some of them are back, some of them are forward just a little bit, some of them are back, some of them are forward just a little bit. That is because what we're trying to do when we set in, all we're trying to do when we set intonation, this is all we're trying to do, is this breakover point right here on the E string is going to be whatever your scale length is. 25.5 inches. On your high E, it's always going to be 25.5 inches, okay? All we're doing is we're compensating for the half of the width of the string as the strings get thicker. That's all we're doing. That's why this kind of moves back a little bit with each thing, because as the strings get thicker, it changes it just a little bit. So if we can actually set the intonation perfectly, almost perfectly, on the high E string by measuring it with a tape measure and get it to 25.5 inches. And then from there, what we're going to do is we're going to tune the guitar to pitch, and then we're going to check the intonation, and then we're going to adjust these screws to move this saddle back and forth to compensate for just the thickness of the strings. Now, it's very important to understand that all you're doing is compensating for really just the thickness and the tension of the strings. Because if somebody will call me and say, I can't get my intonation correct on my guitar, and when they send me a picture, I've got 3 of them are here, and then this one's way back, and then this one's way up. It's when you see that, it's because something else is wrong. It's because if everything, we've done everything to this point in this order, then literally we're only compensating the thickness of each string. Just the thickness. It's actually half the thickness of each string. So if you've got one that's way out of whack, you know you're way off. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and let me show you how we're going to, come on. Let me show you how we are going to, I'm trying to get this off my face. There we go. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how I check intonation on a guitar. It's very, very simple. Let's get this camera up this high, and let me see if I can do this so that it's let me give you a little wider angle here. Now, if I had somebody else shooting with me, I probably would be better at this, but you know, we're a one-man show, so you got to deal with me trying stuff and sometimes failing. Actually, how are we going to do this? Okay, let's do it this way. All right, so now we're going to take our tuner. You got to have a pretty accurate tuner. A good clip-on tuner you can actually do this with, but I like to use a tuner that has a strobe feature to it. All of the pitch black tuners that I have by Korg have these strobe features, and they are not expensive. Even the Korg Sledgehammer clip-on tuner actually has that strobe feature. It's just a lot more accurate. I actually have a really fancy Peterson too. All right, so let's do this. So now we've got, let's see if I can put this in a certain way so that y'all can see it. Oh, that's perfect. We like that. Okay, so this is how we're going to check intonation. All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and get my head back in the box. Oh, you know what? I think I know what the problem is. I feel like my camera froze up, is what happened. Well, that's weird. Yeah, I feel like my second camera froze up. So we're gonna have to do this differently. Sorry about this. The delay in the production, but you know, sometimes is what it is. All right. All right, so let's do it this way. So here we have our tuner. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the high string, the high E string. And we want this to be almost exactly as perfect as possible. Now we're going to fret the 12th fret. Whoa. See, that's sharp? Because it's going that way. Okay, so that means the intonation is not correct on that string. So here's how we're going to fix it. If the tuner goes that way, on a right-handed guitar, if the tuner goes that way, the saddle needs to go that way. If the tuner goes that way, the saddle needs to go that way. So if the tuner goes flat, which is to the left, then the saddle needs to move that direction. If the tuner goes right or sharp, the saddle needs to go that direction. It is as simple as that. And we're just going to do that with each string with the screws down here. So we're going to go ahead and take this and we're going to move him back some. We're going to retune him. Now look. Oh, hang on. Still got to go a little bit more. We're going to leave the camera right there and I'm just going to do this on the fly so that you can see what I'm talking about. Retune. Twelfth fret. A little bit more. And truthfully, I wouldn't actually do it this way. Just to tell you, just to be accurate about this, I will tell you that you would want to do this with the guitar in playing position. Doing it flat like this is not accurate. If I actually, watch this, if I take this guitar and put this in playing position without making a huge mess. Yeah, see the guitar's even, this tuner is so accurate that even holding it upright changes it. Yep, now we're good. Now, the reason intonation is so important is because this is what can kill the tone of a guitar. The things that we've talked about today can kill the tone. Excuse me. More than any other thing. You could talk about tone pots and caps and all kinds of whatever you want to talk about in a guitar, but if this isn't done, none of it is going to make any difference. If the nut height is too high, then the intonation will not be correct when you check it at the 12th fret. When you play your cowboy chords down here, your A, B, C, D, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, just down here, your normal first position chords, if the nut is too high, then none of the notes are going to be in tune. No matter if this intonation is correct at all. If the playing surface is not established first, none of it's going to matter. If we don't get this far and have intonation incorrectly, if intonation is out in the end because of one of the other factors of our guitar setup is wrong, then none of our chords are going to sound in tune. Our notes are going to fight each other, and they're actually going to kill each other. Because what happens is, if you've got a, you know, when you hear a nice harmonic between two notes, when you hear a chord, when you play 3 notes or more as a chord, and they are perfectly in tune with each other, they ring out for longer, there's more sustain. If you have one note that's out of tune, the sympathetic vibrations want to kill each other, so you have less sustain, it sounds bad, and you are fighting for tone when it's just guitar setup. It's a huge, huge deal. If this is something that you're not familiar with doing yourself, or not comfortable with doing it yourself, it only costs $40 or $50 to take it to a good guitar tech. And I'm not talking about like a big box store guitar tech that's going to do it in 20 minutes, but find like a local guy that you can build a relationship with, that you always bring your guitars to, that really knows what he's doing, and pay the money. You know, I had a guy come up to me the other day, and he's like, "How much would you charge me to set up a guitar?" I said, $50. He's like, "Oh man, I've got a buddy of mine that'll do it for 20." I was like, "Well, it sounds like you found your guy," because when you take the time to do it, and it takes a half an hour or 45 minutes or an hour, depending on your skill level, but you get it done correctly, your playing experience is going to be totally, totally different. We can take this $200 guitar and set it up properly and make it feel like an expensive guitar, because everything can be the exact same as an expensive guitar. The player interaction with the guitar can be exactly the same as an expensive guitar. And that is the biggest factor of guitar playing, is the player interaction with the guitar. Everybody wants to put all kinds of emphasis on all kinds of other stuff. But if this right here that we just did just now doesn't happen, none of it matters. So it really has to be done right. So if you go in the description of this video below, if you go in the description of this video below, you will see that we've got some toolkits here by Cruise Tools. They're who I really like. This little toolkit's only like 30 bucks. This other toolkit's like 40 bucks. Stuff's not expensive, but it includes everything that you need to just sit at your kitchen table and do it. Let's real quick. It looks like our chat screwed up. So I just want to make sure that we got everybody here. For some reason, we're having more technical difficulties today than I thought might happen. Let's see. My guy's 50 bucks. I'm just kind of going through some of these old. You didn't get footage from the phone cam. You need to see. Thanks. I appreciate that, y'all. I don't understand why that happened. And for some reason, the chat is not working today either. So maybe we're just having all kinds of technical difficulties today. You know? What are you going to do? Some days are like that. I had a bunch of technical difficulties doing some other stuff before I even started this today. So, you know. So that's it. If you have any questions about any of this kind of stuff, I know it's only been about a half hour, but that's really the thing. The Strat is going to be the exact same thing. If you want to float the Strat, you can go to one of our videos and talk about floating the tremolo and setting all that up. But the Strat's going to be the same setup. Every guitar, pretty much, electric guitar, is going to pretty much be the same way. Now, a Telecaster that has a triple barrel saddle, you know, where there's 2 strings on each saddle, is a little finicky because you have to kind of split the difference between 2 sometimes. But if all of this setup is correct, you can get it dead on. People say you can't, but I can do it. It's not that hard. So, no, it's very cool. I'm going to try to, I think if I pop out of this chat and then come back into it, for some reason, enable live chat. I do not know why. I don't know why that's giving us trouble today. Sorry about that, y'all. For some reason, we're having trouble. Check 1, check 2. Yeah. As long as you have the tools right, you know, that's really the key. As long as you have the tools. These I wish this darn second camera was working. Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to do it this way because I want you to see this stuff. Let's clean up our mess here a little bit. I can't stand clutter. It drives me nuts. So let me show you what we got, and I'll show you on this iPad camera. So I've got two toolkits here that I use from Cruise Tools, just in case you're wondering. So let's go ahead and just flip over to this one here. So we've got two toolkits. This one is my main shop toolkit that I use. These string clippers are amazing. It's got basically everything you need. It comes with a full set of Allen keys. You know, I've had some come out and other ones go in to it specific to my needs. Like this one right here is specifically for a bridge that is not a stock bridge, you know, like a mastery or something. So I've added to it. So that's kind of been variable. There's a pocket back here where you can put a set of strings. We've got a string crank. I've got nut files in here. It doesn't come with nut files, but I've got nut files in here. It comes with feeler gauges, string crank, pliers, all the wrenches, the height gauge, and there on the back of it is actually kind of a general goings on for what you could do for specs. So you can see it here. It's got some general ideas of where you might want your specs for your different measurements, which is pretty cool in case you can't remember them. This is a combination screwdriver, so it's got all the screwdriver stuff built into it. Really super slick. Now this one is exactly the same stuff, it's just all really miniature. I personally, if you're a Floyd guy or if you like a lot of stuff that's got a lot of little wrenches in it, a lot of little Allen keys, I like this set better for the aspect of I like having it on. I don't like a regular Allen wrench like this. I actually like this. I love this because you can be pretty accurate with it and you can get it into places where it normally couldn't get. So I really like both of those sets. And then I use, the tuner that we use is this guy right here. So this is a Korg sledgehammer. Let me show you what he looks like when we put it on the guitar. I really like this tuner. I like it much better than I like a Snark. I'm not a Snark fan at all. So what this does, this is really cool. Sorry for the shaky camera. So what this does, super simple. It's got you turn it away from you to turn it on and you turn it towards you. So we're in mode 1, which is basically just normal guitar. Okay? Now, when you turn it to mode 2, it turns to a strobe simulator. And this is good enough to intonate a guitar. It is good enough to intonate a guitar. It might not be, well, I'm not going to say anything. It's good enough to intonate a guitar. It works really, really well. So I really like that tuner. And then the other tuner that we use on the bench a lot of times is this guy right here, which is also a Korg pitch black. I am not sponsored by Korg or anything. I bought all this stuff myself, but I'm telling you, they're really, really good. And this has the same thing. So this has the normal chromatic stuff, but then it also has a strobe simulator, of which you saw earlier, that I really, really like. So there's links to most of that stuff at that link that I put in the description of this video. So pretty cool. Not really sure why our camera froze up on us, but I apologize for that. Let's see, do we have any questions? For some reason our chat is disconnecting today, so what I'm having to do is literally open it. Tell you what. Let's do this. Let me just, I don't understand why everything is breaking today. If I go out of it and then come back into it, Sledgehammer is great. I usually use a Korg or a Polytune clip-on. Yeah, that might be one of our little tests that we do on once our Patreon really gets going, is to buy some of these clip-on tuners and try them. I would like to do that because they're getting better. You know, snark used to be the thing, and it's not that good, really. This is the best clip-on I've ever used, and they've got a new one out. I really want to try it. I just haven't gotten a chance to try it yet. So, yeah, man. Well, thanks for hanging out with us today. I know it's a little bit shorter of a show, only 36 minutes, but I guess what we need to do is talk about what we're going to talk about next week. You've always been skeptical of the clip-ons, except for in live situations. Somebody said live situations. I've used this live. This is the only clip-on tuner I've ever used live. Once I figured out, this is the only clip-on tuner I will use live. Once I figured out how good it was, it works fantastic. Even live, and I played in a cowpunk band last and was extremely loud. The main stage we played was very small. I'm standing right next to the bass player. This thing worked every time. Worked every time. Yep. And I think they're only like 20 bucks. So they're not expensive. You can go to that link in the description. You'll see it there on one of those lists. We've got it broken out into a couple of different ways. Some of the stuff we use around the shop. You know, so very cool, man. Very cool. Let me just see if there's any other little questions popping up here, and then we will let you all go. Let's see. I really want to say that it's only like 20 bucks. Here, let me tell you. I'll tell you right now. It is $20. It is $20. Yep. I actually have it right in front of me. Yep, only 20 bucks. So, yeah, man. Super fun. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, if you need anything, let me know. Please check out Dylan Talks Tone, where you can get all the parts you need to do all this stuff. And check out that link in the description below, as well as the Patreon link. Don't forget, at the end of the month, we're going to give this away. And I'm hoping by then to also buy some stuff and test it and have next month's also announced. That's what I'm kind of working towards. So, yeah, man. I think the Patreon thing is going to really be killer. So go out there and support that if you would. That would be awesome. And if you have any questions, hit me up. Other than that, I hope everybody has a great one. And we will see you guys all on the internet.